Hi, I'm Frank here at Casper Construction. We're going to be starting a new video series here showcasing, a video or an inspection of a building. And the whole point of this is to give some insight of what we see when we're working on projects or when we're just sitting in church. I'm sitting in mass sometimes and being a little ADHD, my mind wanders and I'm wondering how things are built. This is what we do and these are the things that I think about. Something as simple as how the pews were built. How did they get that arch up there? How is everything in here built? The details about everything, the things you don't normally look at, and we'd really love to show you how they were built by taking you behind the walls and looking at the structure and how it's built. It's pretty raw if we're crawling around, but something you don't normally get to see. And during these inspections, we see it on a daily basis, and it's very interesting to us, and I thought you might like to see it as well. During our inspections, when we come in here and look at all this stuff, we try and bring the whole team. PJ's here with me today, and the old man Franny's here with us today to bring in some wisdom. And luckily he's here with us because this building, we really did a number on this over the years. But the building was built in 1889, and then a major addition with the steeple and renovations happened in 1976. What do you see in here that sparks your interest of anything?
The grand ceiling. I'm curious, and before actually joining on board with you a couple years ago, I didn't even know how this was framed up above here, so that was always an intrigue to see up here. And especially this barreled vault here, I was always curious how they did this. I think that'll be interesting to inspect and see.
Yeah, showing you guys really what it's like back there and how these things are built. This was a big section that my dad added back in the time where they added all this extra seating up here. This was just a stairway coming up in here to this open room, which is open pretty well up to the right up to the top. But there's some exciting stuff in there to show you. But one of the bigger reasons we are here is to look at something's leaking up in the bell tower. We can see it. There's damage on the walls here, and we're sort of here doing a little inspection of what's happening and what we think.
Sure, I think some of the complications that arise with this is, I think right where you're standing was the original facade of the church. You could correct me if I'm wrong. And this was an addition. And a lot of time when you have dissimilar materials or an addition, you have a lot of expansion and contraction. With that, you have flashing problems, which arise in maintenance. So what we're actually going to be looking at is the extent of the water damage in this bell tower and seeing if it's actually migrating down, which just from a visual inspection, I can see some water damage going on here. We'll have a better idea once we crawl up in there. We have a couple ladders here, and we're going to crawl up into the bell tower.
So here we are up in the bell tower. Naturally, pointing out the most obvious thing in here is the bell itself. Pretty cool structure, how they built it, wondering how they even got it up here. Back in the day, how these structures were built. It's been a long time and these things are up here and they're ungodly heavy. And so, during our inspection, we're looking for the most obvious signs before we start digging in to see what's going on and why we're getting a leak down in here. Doesn't appear to be happening all the time. Looks like maybe wind driven, very heavy rain possibly, maybe some flashing issues. We don't know yet. We're gonna dive in here and see what's happening.
There's two methods of ringing this bell. You have this massive wheel, which, if you look here, there was a rope that came down through, so they could ring it from down below. And at some point, they abandoned that in favor of putting a second rope with I don't know what you call that, a gong.
Yeah.
Right here that actually strikes it. So this would, I don't know.
It'll go. Careful.
So it actually has in the middle, and then that would actually strike it from below.
Check these things out, how intriguing this is to us. I don't know what you think about it, but mortise and tenon, timber frame, trusses, that they all just take up the whole ordeal here. They're taking all the weight in this whole roof line, and us standing here You know, anything we add to the ceiling, it all gets transferred into this structure. This is an interesting one here. You know, a couple years back, you know, maybe a decade or so at this point, this beam had failed. There was some ceiling falling down on the pews down there that they first recognized it. We did come and inspect it, but it wasn't something that at the time we were capable of fixing. So another company came in and did a very nice job. You can see how they added all these extra bolts in here, going vertically, and then added another metal plate across the whole thing and added all these bolts into that.
And now we're going to go through this transition into the back end of the church, and we're going to look at how they framed everything up. We're going to see how everything's insulated and holding together and waterproofed.
So here you can see we're right above this archway, the dome, if you will. Pretty interesting. I don't know if you can see what I'm seeing here, but they just continue this over here. At one point, this went straight through the whole back, and they must have remodeled it at some point and put the actual back of the dome in. And at that point, you can see that, you know, they had these protrusions, grottos, you know, we're not sure what to call them. Love to be corrected on that one, what these actually were and or what they are when they're still in churches. But they abandoned all this stuff at some point, and you can see how they built this.
And one thing I wanted to point out too, what I thought was interesting is, like he said, this arch here, today we take for granted that we have plywood and sheet goods that we can cut really big circles out of. They didn't have access to sheet goods back in the day, so they had to nail a bunch of 1-bys and wood material together and then cut the circle out of it. Very cool.
So it's something I wanted to point out in the structure of this the whole building here. The balcony is overhung. There's quite an arch on the balcony, and it is overhung. And at some point in the building, they noticed that it was sagging and came in and added this to the structure of this one main truss. They certainly beefed it up quite a bit with all the metal in here, but this rod is helping hold the balcony up on the end and keep the bounce out of it that was happening at some point in time that we were just told about. Nothing we were a part of. This is pretty old, but pretty cool to see how the structure came together and some modifications that they made to the building to make it work for them. So here you can see we were just up in the attic talking about this post that came down to help support this overhang. We got about a 5-foot, give or take, overhang here coming out around it. At some point, my dad can probably attest to when this was done, but they were doing the project up there, and this was pretty bouncy, maybe even sagging at some point.
Yeah, that's really the whole purpose for that rod that's going up there, is to take the bounce out of it. It's well supported by these posts that are back here, but that post up there is just to take the bounce out of the end of it.
To conclude our inspection, we've looked at a lot of stuff here. Went on a journey up in the bell tower, looked at how this dome was constructed back in the day, and a lot of stuff in here, and we noticed a lot of things that we're going to recommend that they probably take care of. We'd like to point out to people and show them through all these videos and taking pictures and really pointing out the obvious here of what's going on, behind the walls, the things that you don't see that you should be aware of. You got anything to say?
Pretty much nailed it all there. Just share with your family and friends. We're nerds. We can get pretty in-depth and carried away. I'm sure he has plenty of footage to go through and to trim down.
Yep.
But yeah, we would like to know what other people are interested in. What do you guys want to see?
Like us, follow us, share it. Whatever you guys want to see, we'd be glad to do more.
We got to bring it down.
Give it to Franny. He was a Yingling, man. Over 150 years at that point. The symbol of our quality since 1829. Some old hops left in there.